back, guys, which is actually going to be not that much of a welcome back because I'm going to put a big note on the previous one about how we just talked about downtime and advancing characters and that kind of thing. Uh, because everybody had a bunch of resources and it was I feel, a good conversation to have, at least in part. The the run is in a Schrodinger's technomancer kind of situation where we have gotten paid. We are going to turn the researcher over to probably Evo to protect him from the people that he is indebted to, and maybe getting his research finished. There was talk about maybe going on some wild, crazy resonance adventure or something if Hex feels that Hex can do it, to attempt to reconcile this other Technomancer's spirit and body. We'll talk to Hex, see how that goes. Elsewise, she's just going to be turned back over to the doctor. The doctor will euthanize her, and that will be the end of it. And now I guess we're here just to talk about the run in general, which I guess for the first time it just feels pretty great. Everybody can ask Dante things about the run, and I can sit back and steeple my fingers.
So,
Man, nobody's got any questions for Dante about things,
Love it.
right?
Absolutely
No.
love it.
I was just thinking how to phrase what I was about
How much
to say.
was that of that was you, and how much of it was Bamce?
Bamce had the idea of a body that was conscious but didn't want to be. So he had the "it's still alive" idea. And then the rest of it we kind of spitballed off each other. I had the idea of some kind of research experiment giving you some kind of hooding run because everyone had expressed an interest in that. And then when Bamce brought up that he was listening to some Metallica and had this idea based off of one, and then it just started going from there because we had the discussion in Discord over how much free will is worth to us, and like I was making comments that I would rather be dead than be completely under someone else's thumb, and Sue, I believe you were mentioning how, but there's still, like, eventually you could get out from under it, like, isn't it worth living? So we got to play around that, and then the idea of preserving life versus, so it just seemed to really hit a lot of hot button issues that the group had been discussing off of runs.
Yeah,
I appreciate that a lot.
I feel like I should mention that when I said that, I meant more like a person that had free will that temporarily lost it, that then regained it and could like move around and do shit.
Yeah.
Not.
I mean, no one's questioning your beliefs. You can believe whatever you want. It's just what the discussion was about.
It was a discussion that we had, and it was a lengthy one, and even a little bit heated at points. So it was a good way to bring it full circle and into character, and into a run where we would have to discuss it and see where the group would be going forward. So as me and Bamce were continuing to spitball over this, we then I just completely lost my train of thought.
Well, I feel like there was always finish.
We saw it as an opportunity to help establish the group's character, if that makes sense. Like, where the group itself.
But Dante was missing, and this is an important thing because we have actually, I think, two characters that are life-loving and two characters that are actually death indifferent. So I don't know.
Well, I actually had a separate question related to that. The idea. So I believe, and please correct me if I'm out of line or incorrect or whatever, that a lot of the impetus for encouraging roleplay was the fact that there weren't really a whole lot of external challenges. And the way I described it the previous week, and I didn't mean this to be insulting if it was, is that it was a run where essentially nothing happened.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was by design.
Right. And
So
I
you
think,
planned
I
for
think
us to
that
be
led,
paranoid?
I think, well, we are going to be paranoid anyway because there's a GM and we've all heard stories and had some. But I mean, what I'm thinking is that contributed at least strongly into encouraging the players to character drive the narrative rather than have the narrative be action driven.
Now,
Was that
go ahead.
whose idea was that?
That was actually Bamce posted the video where me and him did, and I think Jupiter was even in on that too. We're originally discussing the notion. I don't recall exactly when it initially came up, but I know it was one of my primary goals
Thought so.
for the run.
All right, thanks.
I was thinking that and like the time. We've actually had some experience together. And Jet wanted to say something.
No, that answered my question. If, us actually, indulging our new tendency towards role-playing, was that the sort of the intent?
It was, and you could see at one point in the video, I kind of explain that there are several different kinds of opposition, and it doesn't have to be in the form of combat or some other outside entity directly opposing you. I like the idea of having opposing views within the group and the group having to work that out, and that being the primary source of, well, not really antagonism, but
Seventh grade English
Yeah.
class.
I'm in love.
Man versus
So-
society, man versus self.
So I was thinking more about, like, in my own view, combat is always an option for runners, since if you want to do something and the environment is not cooperating, you can always resort to violence. You can always start shooting and doing stuff. So maybe that's part of it. Like if we wanted to start shooting people, like we kind of maybe did only with shock rounds, we can actually.
Yeah, like it
Well-
would have been super easy to go over to the partner's house, hold a gun to his head, and he would have just told you he's not a runner, he's not a big enemy. Oh yeah, she's over here. Just please don't kill me. And then you could go and just easily turn the body in. The whole thing could have been done in under 2 hours.
I kind of am at least a little angry that we didn't wake him up. I mean, come on.
No. Haven't woken him up.
Never know what'll happen in the future. But I
No.
put in a couple options there. Like we were speaking about it before. I knew there was going to be someone that was going to be following you guys. I didn't know who it was going to be. The glitched perception roll spawned it earlier than I was originally planning. And then I got the great idea from you guys talking and pointing out that the Johnson didn't mention going to the cops or a PI or anybody.
Right.
And that sounded like a great idea. And I'm glad somebody else thought of it for me, so I made it happen.
I loved that it wasn't someone dangerous.
Yeah. Like,
Now-
they're just low NPIs just trailing people taking pictures.
The whole idea, like the whole concept. One thing I said at the end of the last session was that I thought that the elements of the design that I've mentioned, that I've kind of recapped thus far and asked about, and you've answered about, was that I felt, in terms of like our group development, our personal development, and our dynamic, that it was the right run at the right time. Was that anything that you were thinking, and did that inform your decision to go with something so low key and encouraging character drive at this point?
This sounds like a really big research paper interview or something.
I mean, it kind of is in a way. Like that's the point, right?
Well, the thing is,
Yeah.
I want to initiate at some point, and that's going to take like a month. So I'm going to have to run one of these.
Right.
Well,
Well, apparently that the video there for Dante's run, that conversation that we had, I uploaded on May 22nd.
It was really early. There was like
Fuck.
a month between us and originally talking about it. But yeah, the whole purpose of the run wasn't so much to be like, I wanted people to RP, and it was more successful than I could have hoped, just between how you guys actually went through the run, how we talked during it, and even more so the way that all the RP chats lit up following the run.
Oh, the RP chats are awesome.
Yeah. Like, it
A
was
little
just...
bird is telling me that it is their favorite run we've done so far.
Thank you.
Well, put a blanket on that bird because it's time for him to go to sleep.
Now, it may be answered in the video, but where did you start? Inspiration-wise, how much research did you put into what you were working with, and was sort of using Hex as a jumping off point for the she is still awake? Like, where did all that, like, what was that process like?
So Bamce comes to me like, so what do you want to do? And my response was literally like, I was thinking about some guy wants to hire us because his entire life's work was just stolen out from under him, and he doesn't have much money to pay us. Because there was a lot of talk about wanting to do some kind of good or hooding run, and which spawned from me and Bamce talking about what a hooding run was. And then, so that's all I came into it with, was this guy had everything taken from him, and he's going to scrape together whatever last bit he can just to try and get us to get it back. And then he said, oh, well, I was listening to Metallica, and I had an idea about running something like this. And then I
came on in the car as I was driving home from work that day, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes time for me to design a run, like, I mainly listen to Belle and Sebastian.
I don't even know who they are, so...
Look, I have an idea in my head for Shadowrun the musical.
Oh, I'm in, baby.
No,
Like,
for real.
I don't trust myself enough to do it, but the idea is there, lodged in my brain, and it'll happen sooner or later.
I think that should be the pilot run for Shadow Walking 4. Just set the tone.
No, you would be
Shadow Dance, once more with feeling.
First you walk, then you run, and finally you dance.
Jazz hand!
So beyond talking to Bamce about the original idea, I did next to zero research because I like his lazy GM style, which it works a lot better for him because of how much knowledge he has over me. But I'm also lazy, so I didn't just want to give up on it. You have to have goals.
Isn't
Right.
it so great to be lazy?
It is. So a lot of it I came up with on the fly. The only things that I knew really going into it was the origin of the job, like the feeling that I already said, and the fact that the Technomancer was going to be alive and going to be in a storage unit, and that at some point you were going to realize you were being followed. Just to give you possible opposition. I didn't know what they were going to do. Whoever was following you, it very well could have just been all the gang members that you saw outside of the storage unit.
It was a source of tension.
That's all I knew going into it. Yeah, just to give a source of tension in case I felt like I needed to. So then the glitch came through, and I said, okay, well, I have to do something to respond to that. And I made it happen, but I didn't make it happen right away. I put that in my back pocket, and I felt like that started escalating that tension level completely unintentionally.
Yeah, completely unintentionally.
We shot them.
I I didn't. The intention was not to raise the tension level by doing that.
Right.
It was, I knew what was going to happen, but that part of the glitch, like, you would have had to succeed a perception roll, but you glitched the perception roll to make it happen. So it just didn't feel right to implement that part of the glitch right that moment.
Because everyone else had, like, if I remember correctly, that was my perception glitch.
Correct.
And everyone else could, like, see everything around them that would ever happen in the future and the past, so there wouldn't have been much point in, like, Sue walks into a wall or whatever.
Yeah. Like, I probably could have said that the rest of the group saw this car and you were just completely staring at the butterflies somewhere.
Right. Which...
But that just didn't feel right.
No, I got you. So how...
Well, let me... one quick question.
Is that a normal thing to do?
Sorry, you kind of talked over each other for a sec.
Yeah, let me just do one quick. So you didn't really go into workshopping with anything close to a fully formed pitch.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
So if it had been something like everyone else succeeded a sneaking test and I glitched my sneaking roll, then that could be I trip over something and fall on my face, and that kind of ruins the whole sneaking concept for anybody.
I could have done like you trip over a bag of wrenches or something.
Yeah, but if it's something more sensory or cerebral, how normal is it, like, it'd be like, oh, Sue doesn't have any gang knowledge, but everybody else knows that those are the ancients, like, so I'm just gonna keep that for some other thing.
Depends on how.
It also depends upon, like, we were in what 7C would call a dramatic scene at that point. Like, there's no high pressure action or anything going on there. It's just like the setting and us interacting with the setting and nothing immediately dangerous happening. Whereas, like, with the sneaking roll situation, like, maybe part of that glitch is we all get much farther ahead of you and then you trip over something, make a loud noise. We're down the hallway in the next room and you're, like, trying to put the flower pot back up when the security guard comes around the corner. It's like, what's going on here? It's like, this way,
right?
You are still punished with bunny ears for your glitch, but you don't immediately ruin everything for the rest of the team.
Or something like everyone notices that the janitor is in the building and they walk past him and it's fine, and I'm, staring off into space.
Yeah, and when you go to sneak,
pulls a gun,
you run into the janitor. You're like, oh, sorry, I didn't see you down there.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
So it's using glitches for more than just you screwed up. It's using it to enhance or advance.
To make their lives interesting.
So if everything goes according to plan, things wind up getting boring, right? At least how I'm going to view it.
It depends on the plan, but yeah.
No, I agree.
So glitches are also a way of altering the GM's plan as well. Like, that car spawned different from when and where I wanted it to. And I didn't know when or where I wanted it to at that point, so it just kind of forced my hand a little earlier than I might have. It forces the GM to go off of book a little bit as well, if they have a book. It just mixes things up.
I also feel like, sort of, as you said, Sue, the run happened at the right time, since I feel like it was Jet originally who started the let's just role play it out, and it was going on for like 3 sessions or like 2 sessions of him like, well, let's just role play it out, and we kind of finally got around to it, to like role play stuff out.
It kind of started when Jet got his ass beat by Vinny the Fish.
Yeah.
And, like, all of a sudden, a couple of things came together. One was one of you guys was in serious trouble. So there was some of that motivation rather than just doing the job. There was the part where Jet wanted revenge, which would have definitely interacted with Sue's code of honor and some of the other things that you guys were talking about. And at that point, he was like, he was like, so tell me, rather than the metagaming level. And then the next run, like right after that, Hex went down. And there was more of that
Right.
interesting feelings and stuff, in addition to becoming more comfortable with each other, becoming more comfortable with the system, the setting, and everybody else. And then in this one, we had a very feelsy thing. We had a new member, and it wasn't a high opposition run, which gave us the room to do it. And I'm a terrible person and don't like giving up complete control, so I manifest scenes sometimes.
Well, I felt like both of those first things interacted in different ways with my qualities. Like, obviously the code of honor, the no killing thing is that was obvious with the whole Jet wanting to torture the guy to death or whatever. But the other thing is, obviously I can't let Jet die either. Both because of that code and also because of the mentor spirit. The boar thing, like if you read it in the book, it's kind of like, you get pissed off if somebody takes your chair at the bar or whatever.
Right.
But there's a pretty heavy implication of like, you don't let people fuck with your crew.
There's also the fact that, like,
Even pretty people?
if you get known for somebody that doesn't protect or go back for, try to take care of their teammates, what does that happen in the future? Because now you've continued to run through teammates. You're going to need new teammates. So what do they know about your rep about leaving people to die? Maybe if you go down, they leave you to die.
Well, that's a strictly professionalism thing that I feel like should apply to all of us.
It does.
The mentor spirit thing
It's just like a plus one.
I feel like the boar mentor spirit would have been screaming, "Charge the fuck in there and get him,"
Possible.
which is what I was attempting to do.
So I think, like, the system, the setting, the game familiarity kind of enabled it to be like, oh, our guy's in trouble. We need to kind of rally around him. And then it was like, oh, our other person's dying this time. Well, how can we help them and get our other person out of trouble? And then that brought us to our most recent run, which there was a lot of mystery that I really enjoyed being obtuse about, which was great.
Yeah. So I guess I have one more question. Are we gonna do a run this week?
Probably not tonight, given as it's already like 10:30, and we've talked about a bunch of stuff. Rot has some stuff he's working on that I'm going to look through tomorrow and give him some more notes on.
You're kind of cutting out there.
Damn it!
Never fails.
Probably
You sort of completely like cut out the moment you wanted to say whose run it's gonna be.
Yeah. Rod has some stuff he was working on that I was going to give him more feedback on tomorrow. Our time zone thing makes it a little rough to sit down and do a video thing, but maybe we'll try and schedule one of those later in the week. I think I'm off on Friday.
Exactly. I think we can totally make that work if we schedule beforehand.
Yeah, I'm off on Friday, so like we can do that.
It's more of a when you're off than if you're off, because
Right.
your Friday and my Friday are different.
Fair.
But never mind. Like, never mind now. Yeah, I'm working on stuff, and
If other people have stuff, you know where to find me. I will happily sit down and.
I'm interested in doing this. I think I would like to have Rot take his shot first. Like I said, I was
Yeah,
I was planning on having the excuse for my character being gone, being the whole initiation thing.
and that's fine.
I really liked the idea of trying to find a way of pulling everyone into it, but I don't know that that's actually going to work.
It's
as much as I
rough
would
because
adore it.
magic is weird. Like I have a goofy way of making it work for like a resonance thing, so that everybody gets to play. But I don't want to talk too much about it because it's goofy, and we'll see whether or not Hex wants to do it.
Sure. But yeah,
if Hex doesn't want to do it, I'll talk about it after that point.
I'd like to come up with something, but not only would I appreciate a great deal of help from you, Bamce,
Barf.
and possibly Dante, as having experiences before in the context of Shadowrun. But also, if I could get some idea from the characters of like short, long-term goals, that sort of thing, maybe
You could always ask them.
Well, he's meaning like an out-of-character GM-ing thing.
I'm doing that right now, Rot.
We can.
And I meant like in an RP channel kind of, you know.
No, but he's like asking for it so that he can build a run around it.
Yes.
If Sue were to ask Jet what his long-term goals are, I think at this point we're pretty clear on what Jet's answer to Sue would be.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I sort of kind of really find it interesting to base it off of what we know about them, like role-playing wise. But you know, that's just my view.
I'm not just looking to develop characters. I'm also looking to engage players, and as fun as it might be to try and develop an entire Shadowrun around Sue doesn't touch Jet again, or Sue tries to touch Jet the whole time and he runs away. I don't know that that's really going to engage everyone's interest in a way that they'll find compelling.
Yeah, I get what you're putting down.
Yes.
So, I mean, anything you guys could kick me that might be inspirational.
Well, like I was, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in the video where I talked to Dante, is Shadowrun is like everywhere in your life. You just got to kind of train yourself to see it.
I do security at a bank, so
that's easy.
Yes.
Oh my god, a heist. Yes.
Just don't trust the thermal drill.
I've been wanting to do a heist for so long.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would regret about being the GM for a heist is that I wouldn't get to do it. But yeah, that's one place I was already kind of leaning. How does everybody else feel about that?
About the heist or about the goals?
All right.
I think
you know what
you understand. You know just by how I responded to the word heist how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think I've got your take on it. Okay. Yeah, so if everybody could just and this is probably not going to be all that soon, but some ideas about your motivations, your goals, things like that. If you have anything to do with your contacts or your qualities that you'd like to see brought more into the spotlight, that kind of thing.
I'll put some thought into it and let you know if anything shakes loose.
Now, question for Dante, Jet Shah from Rolling Stone. Now that your initial work has found just absolute success, where do you think that you're going to be taking things?
Probably to bed sometime soon.
Yeah, it's almost
sounds
that time.
about right. I'm interested in running more. Running that one, I got to see a couple points where I was not as prepared as I would like to be, with some game knowledge mostly. So I do have to do some research on that. But other than that, I do want to run more at some point in the future.
It's practice and experience. That's all that is.
Yep.
So this may be kind of premature and it may be kind of sad. at some point, Mama Bird is going to cut us loose.
Yep.
How do you guys feel about staying together as a group? One.
Oh, that's a boring conversation. Have that later.
And two, if we were to do that, how would you guys feel about maintaining that sort of rotating GM thing that we appear to be starting up?
That's a long conversation to be had later.
Look, Mama Bird doesn't want us to talk about it.
It's sad.
It's bittersweet.
It's more than
We'll
I'm
need
just kind
to-
of keep it on slightly on topic of the aftermath of Dante's run, rather than go off on giant tangents.
Well, I'd be fine
Yeah, I feel like
playing with you forever. I'm just
You're just a busy man, from what I gather.
I mean, I'm just really lazy.
Which makes little work busy for you.
That's true.
but still.
And sticking with us would be a lot easier than finding and training up a new group. So, maybe that's
the
a
whole
possibility.
point of this group, though.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like if I wanted to do that, I'd have never met any of you assholes.
What does
His life
Shadowrun
would have
teach us, though,
been
Vance?
much better.
Plans change.
This is true. Does anybody else have questions for Dante? Or me?
I think any questions that I have, we would cover in a discussion. I already mentioned something to you. I'm just trying to convert things from a series of
Disjointed ideas into paper.
yeah, that scene in what was the one with Stallone where he travels to the future?
Stop or my mom will shoot.
No.
You mean Demolition Man?
Yeah, the
Three
scene where they go all VR sex and it's just confusing and just a series of flashing images.
I don't want to run that with you.
No. That's where my brain is at with the idea.
Do you have mechanics designed for the 3 seashells?
Stallone doesn't know how it works. I don't know how it works.
I had a super short question, maybe for Bams. Like, you were running two things you said. One was you said you don't like to give up complete control, and you manifested stuff.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Like, was it just purely to try to encourage roleplay or something? And the second question would be, how much insider knowledge did you have, and was how should I say it? Was it the insider knowledge that made you so quiet during the run, and just sort of most of the time at the beginning of the run you were just like largely following orders, maybe? Or was it the character?
So, I'm surprised that this is how long we've got. Well, not really surprised, 'cause we were talking to Dante. Allie is kind of designed for this run. She is a reskin of a character that I played on the hub for a while, who was also a reluctant cat girl, which was great because she got to be that horrible trope that Allie and the other character was, but you got to take it and turn it on its head because she hates it. And twisting tropes like that is kind of fun to do. And I would like to think that you guys thought she was interesting because of that.
Yeah.
For the most part, like, if you check out the video, you'll see the entirety of what I knew about the run. I knew that the test subject was going to be a technomancer. I specifically played Allie because she has all the weird changeling sensory powers, including being able to feel that somebody is a technomancer. Because when Dante and I talked about it, it was, oh, what if Hex isn't there? Well, then we have really no way to figure out that they're a technomancer, that there's somebody alive in there. And then it was like, what if Hex doesn't want to bring it up? It's like, okay, well, Allie can do that. She can enable that. And the the way that she was built and towards like breaking and entering and lockpicking and stuff was a way to fill a role on the team that doesn't step on anybody else's feet. So I'm not bringing in some character to be like, all right, get out of my way, Sue, here I come. And her.
So how would you feel about like a self-loathing, troll-worshipping pixie brawler?
I mean, you said pixie, so just throw it right out in the garbage right now.
That's what the qualifiers were about. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use Pixie and I feel like fuck.
Her not wanting to interact with you guys on like a social level has to do with the fact that she is recently a changeling. She's still kind of adjusting to that, hates it. So
yeah.
So it was more of a character, because I was wondering if that's like you being the game master and encouraging roleplay over your own role in the story.
It was a little of both, of me being... I didn't want to come in, because obviously I have some knowledge of what's going to happen in the run. I don't want to come in and tell you guys what to do, because one, that kind of defeats the purpose here. We're supposed to be about learning and that kind of stuff, and letting you guys, taking a step back and letting you guys explore through the run and me just kind of assisting a little bit keeps it honest. The character to fit that with the antisocial aspect was just like a character roleplay choice, and it also was interesting because it helped to define kind of like the group's dynamic a little bit, because here she is, and she is on the outskirts of the group, but here she is to work with you, and it was whether or not you guys engage and pull her in or push her away or anything, you know, how that works, how you even treat her as a freak, because that's what she is.
If I recall correctly, Jet's history, that's also something that at least two of us could strongly identify with.
Yeah. She is laden with groan-inducing things. Like, her fake sin is Katarina.
I hate you.
And yet I'm not surprised in the slightest.
No. And I hate myself for not being surprised.
Yeah.
I stole the abbreviated runner name of there was a Games for GM's character I made whose name was Back Alley. You know, she's a street kid, born in some back alley, raised on the streets. I stole a little bit of that history for Allie's backstory, so that, you know, Allie cat burglar.
Right.
Just all the groans that I could possibly fit in there, I just kind of kept shoving in there, because the idea is she hates it. So if I leave these low-hanging fruits there, and you guys in character grab and pull on them, she can respond.
Right.
And she did respond to some of that stuff. Like I was hoping that Hex, being the weeb that Hex is, when it was revealed her cat girlness, that Hex would be like, ah! Because, you know, Japan, weirdos.
I mean, to be fair, she can't be a weeb because she's from Japan. So
I suppose that's true.
now, Hex the man, on the other hand,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Hex jumped on look, she has cat ears, it was like, thank you, because now I can be mean to you, and it's totally in character, because she hates what she is.
Yeah. But I was kind of thinking, and I haven't seen Jet talk about this much, and I know that I had it in my head, but it didn't really come out until the conversation with Rot and I. The whole goblinization thing, like I had some trauma that followed from that, but my thinking about that experience is that you don't forget that. Like, that stays with you.
Yep.
And if you're just 2 weeks out of it, like,
You're gonna be miserable.
yeah.
And she was miserable.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other things going on with her that I linked her sheet there in the chat if you guys want to look at it.
I haven't looked at it. I'm assuming that it's an arcane arrestor thing that I keep picking
No.
up on.
It's not. It is actually astral hazing.
Oh, okay.
She sits in the middle of a background count.
Weird.
Yeah. Which is
Is
why,
that
like,
negative?
what's that?
Is that a negative quality or a positive one?
It is a negative quality.
Huh.
So can I now?
Wait a second. If magic is targeted at her, though, does it not benefit her?
It's harder to target her with magic.
Right.
Both harmful and helpful.
Sure.
And
Oh, okay. I got you.
gotcha. Like her hanging around Sue, he is going to lose 2 to 3 dice on all of his spellcasting that he does.
Now, if I hung out with her for long enough, would I eventually attune myself to her background count?
No, because the astral hazing negative quality mentions that it's like a non-aligned background count. Like it's not.
Right.
It's like some weird other thing, and you would have to be around her like 24/7 for like 2 weeks, I think, because I think it's 1 point per week.
Oh, but it could happen.
If you stayed inside her personal space all that time,
I probably not, just because it's a negative quality, but it would be a weird thing that would be kind of like a GM call in that situation. More importantly, she's not going to let you hang around that close to her for that long. And it's
Right.
also weird because it's like a mobile background count, because it's based upon her. So where she
Right.
goes, and like if she goes out to dinner and sits there for a while, it will slowly permeate that area, but when she leaves, it'll slowly go back to being normal.
It's one of those things where mechanically and logically you probably have a leg to stand on about being attuned or whatever, but because it's a negative quality, you can't. You just can never subvert a negative quality.
But there's
So
enough
it-
weirdness in magic that you could actually justify it. So.
Yeah.
But it seems like the sort of thing where, like, if, and not that this would happen, but if this turned into some sort of like buddy cop thing, like where we were specifically attuned to one another, then there could be some justification for that.
I mean, there's a home ground astral acclamation quality that you could buy. It's 10 karma, so it would be 20 in play. I would let that work.
I have home ground,
No, there's a couple of different home ground qualities.
but I don't know that I could necessarily justify that my home ground quality is one cat girl.
Right?
But
You
it's
know-
a funny idea. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, if you wanted to spend 20 karma to avoid 2 points of her messing with your magic, I would allow that.
No, what I was thinking was if I was going to spend that amount of karma, like that should be aspected in my direction, to where she was almost like a familiar.
Yo, that would not go over well with her.
Well, I wouldn't call her that,
Yo, she's smarter than you, so you better watch out.
but it sounds like it would be less me hanging out with her 24/7 for 2 weeks, and more like I'd have to wear her as a hat for a couple of weeks.
Throw her in a backpack and just carry her around.
I feel like I could be a little bit more respectful from that. I mean, my intuition is not
Papoose.
great, but you know.
Here, let me treat
Yoda
you.
situation.
You are a little kitty. Let me put you in kennel.
Yeah, I don't see that going well.
No.
But
And that's how Sue died.
but that does kind of, I mean, not quite that idiotic, but like the whole thing with like the jet sleeping thing, that was like half prank and half like desperate for a family. Please accept me. I really hope you react.
I really hope you react well to my 800 pounds of self on top of you.
Well, you're shorting me 300 pounds, for which I say thank you, but you know what
The
you know what I
camera
mean.
adds
And
300
I wasn't
pounds.
saying on top of him. I was being the big spoon. Uh, I could try to be the little spoon, but I don't know how that would work.
Not
But
well.
no, that's a big part of his character as well. That I kind of got into with a little bit talking to Jed about it, out of character mostly, and more with Rot. Like the crew, this runner team, like that's his family.
So dysfunctional.
Really, whether they like it or not, and in some specific cases, perhaps very much not. But that's kind of where he's coming from with a lot of the stuff that he does.
Right.
Despite the fact that this is someone who understands etiquette and has a fair amount of charisma, like the whole idea of like, oh, I'm gonna go ooga 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 at Rot, like despite the fact that he's like nutty paranoid about magic, is like I'm just trying to be big brotherly. Like that seems like something that goes along with Sue's other mental stats.
I
And
just wanted to point out, not magic, just mental magic, mind magic. But fair enough.
all
You
magic
also
is
really
mind magic.
screwed the pooch with trying to get Jet to like you by joking about Bogota. So
You weren't there for that.
yeah, he was while he was falling asleep.
You didn't
I
know
thought
he was listening.
I thought you were asleep.
It's
Anyway, I had one more question maybe for Bams, because this relates to Ali and the story. If I could, bless
Sure.
you.
You know,
Um,
she says Danke.
if you do you work with situations where runners want to take someone on a run, or do you try to avoid them? Because then you end up having to. I know it's like an NPC situation, only like a slightly better developed. But let's say, for example, that it's someone that the runners like, and they sort of grow to like taking him in on the runs. Do you just explicitly, you shouldn't do that, I don't want to do that, or do you just go with it?
So for the remainder of our time together, however long that turns out to be, if I am running a game and you guys wish to bring Allie along, I would be happy to let you guys call her up and bring her along. She will not suddenly become all-knowing, all-seeing, although she is pretty close to all-seeing with her perception dice, but that's neither here nor there. But she would be there to assist you guys in the ways that she normally does. She would probably still be quiet because she's not an upfront and personal kind of character. But if you guys were like, man, none of us are good at lockpicking, I would bring her along if you guys called her. If she has a brick of knowledge skills of stuff that she knows, so if it was something that that was relevant to the run that hits on one of her knowledge skills, I would roll dice and I would see if she knows a thing, and then she could be the source of that information.
I was talking like less about Ali specifically, but more about like a game master workshop of yours. Do you generally discourage players using like NPC characters for playing with them?
So
Or
I'm an advocate of the NPC decker because that can solve a lot of time-related problems, because the Matrix takes a long time and it's a lot of convoluted rules. So if the group, like nobody in the group really wants to play it, or you guys aren't comfortable with the Matrix rules, having an NPC decker that never shows up on site and just has... There's a couple of different ways that I've thought about doing it. One was giving them a dice pool that, for all Matrix activities, that is comparable to the dice pool of the rest of the people at the table. And then giving them one edge per person at the table and rolling them out like normal Matrix rules. You can do it through just hand waving and just kind of like, hey, you know, here's what they can do throughout time to just kind of make it way easier. But in that situation, somebody out of character is going to have to tell them, I want to Google this, that, or the other thing. Kind of make it like a gestalt consciousness between the table, rather than it being somebody who volunteers ideas, because when you're the GM, it's not fair to just be like, oh yeah, no, here's all the stuff I Googled for you guys.
Yeah. So the NPC would have to be either utterly mercenary or relatively new to the game.
Could you just make them an agent?
Yeah, you could. You could make them an agent. You could say that they are an AI, but don't use the actual AI rules because they're terrible. And there's also thematic issues with AIs, like the bounties on them and that kind of stuff. So, like...
But you could say there's this hacker thing construct that will ride along with your com links, and if you tell him to do something hackery, he'll do it.
You don't even necessarily need to do that. Like, you don't get noise penalties within 100 meters of a target. They can just be like, look, I'm not going to be with you guys, but I'll be in the area to do stuff. And then you don't know which of the 100 or so cars in the various parking spots around the plex that you're messing with that are there.
Okay, so it wouldn't be weird, like, if you had an NPC decker that was with you and there was a camera and he didn't say, hey guys, how about I take out that camera, that would be weird. Whereas if he were off site and you had to communicate everything to him, that wouldn't be weird.
It's sort of like, you know, if you're like, okay, we need you to take care of the security. This comes back to assumed competence. The decker's gonna go, oh, he didn't say take care of the cameras, so I'm just gonna leave him alone. You know, he's gonna know that you obviously meant to take care of the cameras.
Right.
But that also lets you influence the narrative, because it's like, okay, you know, guys, I can do this, but I don't have a lot of time because it's, you know, a tougher host, so you guys are going to have to move quickly, or else I might not be able to have the cameras locked down for that long. Or like in the situation where one of you guys glitches, you know, your decker can suddenly be, uh-oh guys, ice just spawned, I don't have much time. He could be chair guy.
We do have a little bit of that with Hex.
Yeah, except you gotta kind of carry Hex around and make Hex touch things.
Right. Like, she can do a lot of stuff, but it requires that even if she comes up with the idea, you know, we have to, like, get her there and, you know, do that sort of thing.
Hex is just a wuss when it comes to the Matrix a little bit. Like, always going hot sim and wanting to touch things. Sometimes you just, you know, you just have to not be a bitch and just go for it.
She doesn't have to touch things?
So touching things gives a significantly lower defense pool.
Oh, okay.
But it obviously comes with the added complications of touching things.
Right. So, but if push came to shove,
she could hack from the car or from AR.
You could just do it. Okay, okay.
Or mid-shooting.
Yeah.
Which she didn't do at all.
Hacking during combat is bad.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. I haven't shot anything.
You tried to shoot a lightning bolt or something one time, didn't you?
No, I mean, I have a gun.
Stun bolt.
Yeah.
I have some dice in it. Some.
Yeah, bullets don't cause strain.
I've never used it. Yeah. Well, that's because it's not going to do anything to anybody.
Man-made stun bolt.
Exactly.
I'm really just carrying the gun because I'm a giant fucking dude, and holding a gun might make people think, oh, he's not the magical guy.
Yep, that's why you know, that's why it's good for mages to carry guns, and sometimes the bigger the better. It's like, you know, that guy's got an assault rifle. He's clearly not a mage.
And I could suppress something, I'm sure.
Yeah, you could try.
Maybe not what I want to, but I could suppress something.
No,
The gun
no,
flies
Sue,
out of your
the enemy
hand.
is in the other direction. No, no, no.
Did any of the rest of you guys have any other questions either way?
Most of the stuff I have, I think, would be better done, like, you know, throughout the week.
Sure. In that case, Dante, how you feeling?
I feel pretty good.
Good. Feel confident, feel
Good.
strong.
That is definitely something that I could feel.
Okay.
I do have another question.
Oh, damn it.
Fuck.
Of course.
That's why we can't have nice things.
So Dante, you've just done your first run, and everyone has reacted to it incredibly positively.
It sucked.
Thanks, Rod.
It really did.
I cried the
How
whole
does-
time.
How does that feel?
Feels pretty good. I
Alright.
was a little nervous. Like, my only source of nervousness going into it was that everyone was going to be bored. So, knowing that that wasn't the case is pretty satisfying.
Nice. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, one of the things I guess that I didn't quite answer when Rod asked was about not relinquishing control and generating scenes. There was a couple of things where, like,
Could you repeat, because you just got out totally, like,
God damn
every
it.
second word.
in reference to Rod asking about, like, generating scenes and not letting go of control. For example, when we were in the car, Allie has motion sickness because cats don't like being in moving vehicles. Because I'm a bad person. And it was a opportunity, like, when Rot rolled like 7 successes on a perception test earlier, and I dropped a hint as to her nature, and he didn't do anything with it. So when we were sitting in the back of the car, you know, found out that we were going to go highway speeds. I'm like, okay, I know that she has motion sickness and that she's not going to be feeling great about this, so I just kind of put it in there to kind of, like, draw a comment out because, you know, she's this mysterious figure. And then Rot, like, is an asshole and accelerates, and she loses her hat, and then it has that whole hex thing. And trying to remember one of the other scenes that I kind of just, like, those are the kind of things that, like, you can use to springboard off roleplay with some of your negative qualities and some of the situations. Like, I didn't want her to sit there and just be, oh, I can't tell you guys who I am, let me hide my identity, let me be just like this giant mystery thing hanging out here.
But if I understand correctly, this is something that players should sort of, in moderation, be allowed to do. Like, for example, let's say Sue with his claustrophobia, like, oh, suddenly, like, for whatever reason, I have a claustrophobia attack or something, right? Or not?
Yeah, if he's in a claustrophobic situation, like, your negative qualities are just as much on you to remember as they are on the game master to remember. And if it,
I know, but it's like more of a, like, I need to roll for that, or more like I can sort of, as you said, manifest the scene.
It's one of those things, like, as you guys, or not necessarily you guys, but, like, as a table becomes more comfortable with each other, it's something that I would totally encourage, because it's there to augment the role play. Because sometimes, like, in our stupid character chats that we had, it was, you know, there was a scene here, and then character exited scene, and other character followed them to talk to them. You know, like 2 days later, we were talking about how we were driving to the meet And then Allie was like, I need to pull over. I did that so that we could have a different scene, still within the timeline, where it's like she is there and struggling with her motion sickness. But it was really the opportunity to get everybody to kind of have the opportunity to interact before the run was technically over.
But there's also an element where if you're a member of a crew of people and you rely on one another to be incompetent or to be competent,
right?
You know, and to have skills and abilities and to specifically not have weaknesses, it seems somewhat normal to try and downplay that as much as possible. For instance, none of you can probably think of the last time I got into an elevator. And if you were thinking about it in character, it probably makes a great deal of sense that somebody who's 11 feet tall is not going to get into the average elevator.
Yeah.
But the fact that I'm always going, I'll take the stairs, is not because I don't think I'll fit in the elevator or I couldn't like sit down in there or anything. That's because of the claustrophobia.
Right.
But I don't necessarily want to broadcast that to everybody.
No, that makes sense that you want to, like, especially with something like claustrophobia where it's like a mental thing, to kind of keep that close to the chest, as it were. Alice is very much a physical thing. Like, she physically becomes ill from doing it. And then, like, we got into the taking the meds, and given as it's an actual negative quality, that's why later on in the off-camera roleplay I had her get ill, because if let me even just take a look at how motion sickness is like a 5-point negative quality. If it's easily defeated by going to the stuffer shack and not paying any actual money because you have a lifestyle to handle, then, like, is it really a negative quality at that point? Like, should you be getting karma for it, or should you buy it off?
Well, what I was kind of thinking of when I suggested that was, isn't there quality or schizophrenia or some kind of mental health quality where, like, you have to pay, like, some negligible amount, like 300 new yen a month, to keep your symptoms under control?
There's a couple of things like that. I think it's like Telex, TLEX or something. There's bipolar, which I don't like using because it's an actual thing.
Yeah, that's what I think. It's bipolar that has that. Like, there's something where you can take medication
and it gives
to
you
deal
like
with
bonus dice. But, like, motion sickness isn't a common thing that they have stats on drugs for you to take to avoid.
Okay.
So I think we've
Exhausted everything?
hopefully.
Yeah. Yep.
Alright then. I want to thank you guys for coming out for this conversational based episode, I guess. Hopefully it was just more educational and interesting still. But maybe next week we'll have Rot taking the big chair. We'll see what happens.
I hope I'm not Dante.
Fucking Rot.
On that note,